was the celebrations in June 1953 for the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. Events were planned for the whole of that coronation week, including a parade through the town which was supported by many local organisations. Many sports clubs, youth organisations and voluntary groups from the Ruislip area produced floats and displays to celebrate the Queen's coronation. Ruislip High Street was decorated with flags and flowers to welcome the new monarch. The 1960s were to see the demolition of two of the old manor houses of Eastcote. Firstly, this film shows Eastcote House, which was owned through the centuries by the Hawtrey and Dean families. The house had its origins in the 16th century and had been visited by Cromwell, as the Hawtreys were strong Parliament supporters during the Civil War. After the demolition of the main house more than 30 years ago, the old Dovecote and Parkland are all that remain of this once large estate. A similar fate was to befall Hayden Hall, which was on the opposite bank of the River Pin from Eastcote House. Originally built by the Countess of Derby in the 17th century, only the grounds now remain of this once impressive country house. During the 1950s, the Ruislip Lido was a popular spot for a day out for both locals and Londoners. In an age before most families had a car, the opportunity to enjoy a beach and a paddle so close to home meant that the Lido was often crowded, especially at weekends. Originally built at the end of the 18th century as a feeder reservoir for the Grand Junction Canal, the flooding of the valley meant that some cottages were destroyed. The heyday of the canals soon passed, and the Lido became increasingly used for recreation. During the 50s, you could enjoy fishing, swimming, boating, and of course that all-time favorite, making sandcastles. In more recent years, the Lido has not enjoyed such popularity as more and more residents travelled further afield for their leisure activities. Leave this part of 1950s Middlesex with a film taken of the old manor farm. The grounds and barn were often used for school and church fetes, which 40 years ago included the children performing country dancing around the maypole. On the 18th of May 1955, Uxbridge received its Charter of Incorporation as a borough, which was granted by the Queen. The RAF band and airmen from RAF Uxbridge took part in the ceremony, which was held at the Regal Cinema in the High Street. The Regal was opened in 1931, but like so many other cinemas, was converted to a bingo hall in 1977. Over 1,600 guests had been invited to the ceremony in the theatre. Large crowds in the town awaited the arrival of the Duchess of Kent, who would present the Royal Charter. The Duchess was accompanied by her children, Princess Alexandra and the Duke of Kent. Following an inspection of the RAF Guard of Honour, the royal group entered the cinema with the Charter Mayor, Mr. J. Cochrane, for the formal ceremony. On leaving the Regal, the royal guests were cheered by the thousands of citizens who lined the street. The charter meant that the Uxbridge District Council was renamed the Borough of Uxbridge. This borough would exist until 1965, when reorganisation to form the 32 new London boroughs would create the London Borough of Hillingdon, and the county of Middlesex would disappear. This film, made in the early 1950s, shows the life of a typical Uxbridge family. It captures many aspects of daily life that have now disappeared, including the trolleybuses that served the Uxbridge area until 1960. The father of this family worked for the Bell Punch Company, which until its closure in 1976 was a major employer in the area. One of this company's major products were the ticket clipping machines that were used with the old London Transport bus tickets for more than 60 years, until their final replacement in 1958. In our modern world of electronics and computers, the mechanical punch card and adding machines shown here now seem very old-fashioned. The daughter of the family is shown working at the department stores of Suitors in the town. This old shop, which was opposite St. Margaret's Church, ceased to exist in more recent years when it was taken over by Owen Owen. However, many residents of Uxbridge will probably remember this family-run shop as it's shown here. The next section of film is taken from a road safety film for West Drayton. It highlights the dangers that could be found in Station Road and on the many factory sites in the area. The use of single-decker buses shown here was needed because in the 50s there were low railway bridges in the area. The dangers of the roads were pointed out to pedestrians, cyclists and drivers as part of the council's efforts to improve road safety. On the 18th of March 1960, the Borough of Uxbridge granted the freedom of the borough to RAF Uxbridge. The town has had a long association with the service dating back to 1917, when the Royal Flying Corps established a gunnery and armaments school on the Hillingdon House estate. In 1920, the RAF Central Band was established at Uxbridge, and during the Second World War, the RAF station was the headquarters of No. 11 Fighter Group. During the Battle of Britain, RAF Uxbridge was the home of the underground control rooms which coordinated our defences against the German bombers. Many people turned out for the celebration, which was an important landmark in the long history of the town and the RAF. The granting of the freedom was a recognition of over 40 years of close association between the town and the RAF station, which is one of the oldest in the country. Following the presentation ceremony on the parade ground, the RAF personnel exercised their new freedom by marching through the town, where the Mayor, Alderman Souter, took the salute. During the late 1950s, proposals were made for the redevelopment of Uxbridge town centre. And over the next 5 years or so, the town began to take on a run-down look as shops became vacant, and Uxbridge awaited a final decision on its future. Much of the area in the town centre would be changed forever as part of this redevelopment. This included some of the old streets and yards which ran down to the High Street and had been part of the town since medieval times. Houses were demolished in Bassett Road, Laundry Yard, Lawn Road and the Lynch. This would then enable part of the High Street to become a pedestrian-only area. In Lawn Road, the Providence Congregation Church, which was built in 1796, along with much of the surrounding area, was demolished. Further phases of the plan would see the creation of a new shopping centre and the completion of the new civic centre in 1970.